Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Wave Network and Sports Corner with the Conn Man. I am your host, the Conn Man, and this afternoon I have a very special guest, my guy, Nom Desilva. Nom, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. Folks, before we go and we give Nom his roses and flowers, I'm going to tell you how I guess I got my first visit with Nom. Now, folks, I'm old as dirt, as you all know, and I used to be doing the UMass Dartmouth basketball camp, which is out of UMass Dartmouth in Massachusetts. And as you guys know, when you do a camp, what you usually do is you get your counselors together, and you go by different groups as far as gender, age, skill specific, etc. And what a lot of counselors don't do, or what they do is they go for the big man. And I said, because folks, you go for the big man. If the big man can't get the ball, he's not going to be effective. So what I did was I saw this guy, well, at that time, kid, Nom, and I said, I want this kid. I want him. And I don't know if he remembers this, but
I remember it all.
I
I do.
anyway, I put a lot on this guy. I put a lot on him, man. I'm telling you, because you know me, I'm very analytical when it comes to basketball. So I put a lot on him, and he was very special back in the day because he retained every damn thing I told him. He retained it. I said, I know this kid's going to be special. Of course, now I went on to make my top 100 all-time South Coast basketball players of all time. And he went on to have a great high school career at Dartmouth High School, had a great collegiate career, and we're going to discuss what he chose to do after that. So anyway, now what I do is on my show, I usually keep my mouth shut because I got a big mouth, and and you already know that. So what I usually do is I have my guests come on and talk about their grind, their journey, and also I like my guests to make an impact. And I think that what you've accomplished is so uh, incredible to me. And I'm so damn proud of you and what you've accomplished. Although I kind of knew from the get go. I kind of knew how you was gonna be. I kind of knew. And Norm's dad and I friends, from back in the day because we both were on IBO referee as well. So Norm, now it's on you, my brother. I want you to let the viewers know, and we're seeing all over. This ain't just Dartmouth. This is all over. Believe it or not,
I hear you.
we're doing all right. We're getting better. We're getting around there. We're doing a damn thing, and my network allows me to do the platform that I choose to, and I claim that I'm the NBA historian, but I think you're going to give me some knowledge today. So now,
It's funny. It's funny you said that I retain everything because here's an example of, and not just. I mean, I wouldn't retain anything from anybody on the street, but like you were kind of like one of the guys, right? You're an institution for a lot of us younger guys who grew up going to the boys club and UMass Dartmouth camp. And I specifically remember this one. You are the NBA historian, and this proves it. But you gave me a trivia question, and I think it took me like the whole week to get it, and I finally had to ask my dad for help, like by Thursday night, so I could have the answer on Friday. You were asking me, and again, point guards do seem to rule the world sometimes, but it was name me the 5 point guards or guys who have led the NBA in both points and assists in the same year, I think it was. And back then there were only 5, and I think 1 or 2 have done it since. But I mean, it was your guy Isaiah Thomas. You're a big Isaiah guy.
y'all know that. Know that.
Tiny Archibald, Pete Maravich. I think, man, I mean, I should know this, but there were 2 more, and I want to say it was like guys from the 70s, like Rick Barry might have done it. And heck, I'm going to blank on the 5th one. But yeah, you were always the NBA historian. And no, I was just thinking about a lot of the boys club was kind of where I first saw you. I think you walked through the door looking like you could bench press 650, and it was like, oh man, this ref is no nonsense. And my father was like, oh no, that's Mike Casation. He does this, that, his brother, and this and that. So I got my introduction to kind of it at the age of maybe 10, 11, 12, like real basketball. And my father was a big proponent of making sure that I was exposed to players who were better than me, players who were more mature than me, physically, athletically, emotionally, mentally, all that. And I grew up in Freetown, Massachusetts, and I love Freetown. And to this day, I still talk to my buddies there and everything. But we got our little team together and we had to go. We played in New Bedford. That's where the players were. That's where the competition was. And I remember you reffing those games. And it's funny, like you said, make an impact. And I think one thing that I took away from the boys club, especially, and my message to people who are maybe involved in youth sports now is you don't really realize at the time, maybe as an adult, when you're working those things and putting that time in, you don't necessarily know on what high a pedestal those kids put you on. And I remember the Rob Mendy's of the world and the guys who ran the other teams and coached those teams. And to me, it was like, the governor of Massachusetts or the mayor of New Bedford, whatever, these guys that run the boys club, these are important people. These guys, they know what they're talking about. And it means a lot, and it may not mean a lot to the people who are maybe putting that time in, but like, it does mean a lot to the kids, and they're watching you. They're watching you. They're taking away little things. But going through the boys club and then UMass Dartmouth camp, and I do remember, I'll always be indebted to you and thankful for you for this, but you included me. I think I was a freshman or going into my freshman year in high school, and you included me in the Manny Costa game one summer. And that was a great event you put on. It was who's who in high school basketball between Matt Kurt and Ryan Goyette and Joel Waters and guys that that really loved the game, were really, really good players at that point in time. And you included me in that, and I held my own in the game, right? But it gave me a little bit of confidence, and guys started to know who I was, and I think it was really, really beneficial for me. So thank you for that. But I guess I can go in a lot of different directions from here. Like you wanted me to talk a little bit about my grind and my path.
Yes.
Let you direct me as to what you want me to touch on most and
okay. Let's start from maybe your freshman or sophomore year at Dartmouth High School and proceed and until where you're at right now. And also, fortunately or unfortunately, my producer Key Williams is a big 76ers fan, so she may tune in and ask you some questions.
Hey, don't be talking about me, Ty.
What I tell you? So yeah, if we can go from the get go and work our way up, and I'm sure my producer will be joining in.
Awesome. So freshman year, I played JV. I think at Dartmouth, it was kind of an unwritten rule: freshmen don't play varsity. And Ryan Goyette was probably the first one, maybe a long time outside of Jessica Gasper. Even Timmy Gasper, who could have played as a freshman, did not play varsity. He played JV. And I played JV. We went undefeated, actually. Our last win of the season was at New Bedford, and it was our coach, Mike Oswald, had us all riled up and motivated. We ran through that door like gangbusters to get our 20th win, go 20-0. In the most intense JV basketball game you probably ever seen in your life. But we did get our 20th win. We were 20-0 and won that game in New Bedford. It's kind of sick that I still remember this stuff. But played varsity as a sophomore with guys like Casey Granfield, Brian Jalbert. Ryan Goyette was a junior at the time. Sam Madden. I could name too many, but played a few minutes. I was kind of just a shooter at that point. If I was open, you dumb enough to leave me open, I could make it. And that was kind of like my role. But ultimately my junior year played again alongside Ryan. Cullen Gilchrist. I don't know if Cullen's one of my best friends in the world, and he's one of these enigmas that nobody really knows about unless you were really paying attention that one sliver in time. So my junior year, Ryan Goyette was a senior, all-time leading scorer in Dartmouth High history. Ironically, he didn't even lead the team in scoring that year. It was a guy named Cullen Gilchrist, who was an all-state defensive end. He ended up going to play defensive end at Dartmouth College, Division I in the Ivy League, and wildly successful businessman now in Washington, D.C. We'll get into that later. But he was our leading scorer. He was 6'5", great hands, and we just throw it inside, dump it in, and he would either dunk it or put it home or whatever. He would go to the foul line and probably miss free throws, but he was leading the team in scoring. Halfway through the year, he blocked this is maybe the best play he had all year, and worse. He blocked a 3-point shot at the top of the key by Jamal Johnson, and then tracked down his own block, went the whole length of the court, laid it in he came down and funny on his knee and tore his knee, and that was the end of his season. Now, I think we were 13-0 at the time or something like that. We ended up playing Tony Gaffney, who we had split in the regular season with Somerset. We won at our place, they won at their place. Then we saw them in the state tournament the game was held at Durfee, and winner ended up going on to they beat us in overtime, but they ended up going on playing O'Brien at UMass Boston in the state semis. But that was one of the best teams we had that year with Ryan and Colin before he got hurt, but still Sam Madden, Rory Caslin, Brendan Lang, Danny Roy. We had a pretty good squad. And from there, my senior year, lost at Stoughton, I think, in our senior year. I'm going on way too much about high school. I should not be living in the past as much as I am right now. But from there, I went to do a year of prep school. There were a couple of Ivy League schools who said if I get my SATs up, this and that, then, I might have a chance to go in there. So went to prep school for a year at Loomis Chaffee in Windsor, Connecticut. I ended up going to Babson College. So I knew I wanted to do business. Babson's one of the best business schools in the world. Ended up there, started as a freshman, led the league in assists as a sophomore, led the nation in turnovers. Actually, I'm afraid to admit, but you have to have the ball a lot to turn it over that much, I guess.
Exactly.
So played 4 years there, graduated. Going into my senior year there, I started trying to plan. A lot of kids were thinking about internships. What are we going to do? Am I going to go work for Microsoft? Am I going to go work for Bear Stearns, or which ironically had just collapsed? But a lot like where's the next step? And I couldn't quite bring myself to kind of say basketball was over. And I was like, hey man, I've been studying finance and this business stuff for 2 to 4 years now here at Babson. But I've been studying basketball since Mike found me down at UMass Dartmouth when I was 7, 8, 10 years old, whatever. I said, I got a lot more basketball knowledge up in this thick Portuguese cranium than finance. So I'm like, all right, let's give this thing a shot. Let's go find an internship in basketball, which I did. Mike Procopio, who was Leo Papil's kind of right-hand man with BABC. You probably know Mike, and I'm sure you know Leo. But Mike kind of took me under his wing a little bit, and he was at the time working for Tim Grover out in Chicago. And Tim Grover is Michael Jordan's trainer. He's doing a lot of motivational speaking right now. You'll see him all over LinkedIn and social media and podcasts. And he was kind enough to give me an internship, unpaid at first, go out there, rebound for NBA players, college players, whoever. It was kind of cool. Got to do that, sleeping on a couch in Chicago, sleeping, trying to just make it week to week, right? How am I going to get to the next week? Actually went out there the first summer with my buddy Colin Gilchrist. He had some family out there. So the two of us were just trying to make it in some beat up apartment and going in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we had to go make some money. So we were trying to sell finished basements, going door to door, getting people. It was a fun time, but did that for one summer, went back, finished my senior year in college. The next summer went out, did the same thing, and was able to get a assistant coaching job for my first year out of school at the University of New Haven. And did that, the Division II level, that Northeast 10 league, which is a fantastic basketball league. Assistant coach there for a year. And then from there, went back again in the summer to Chicago and networked. And, the weeks are going by. It's like, where am I going to work? Where am I going to work? And the basketball world's so very year to year and fickle with, there's very little stability. And so I eventually, right towards the end, I hooked on with a guy who had just become the head coach of the NBA Development League team in Utah. So the Utah Flash, they had a guy just named Kevin Young who became head coach. That name might be familiar because he was the associate head coach with the Phoenix Suns. He interviewed with the Brooklyn Nets for their job recently, the Charlotte Hornets. And he just took the head coaching job at BYU. So he's back in Utah, ironically. But he took me on as kind of a intern / assistant coach in the NBA Development League that year, driving vans, cutting up film, driving people to the airport, rebounding, open up the gym, like all kinds of stuff, just you name it, all the way up to game planning with the head coach. So it was fantastic learning experience. Got to wear lots of hats, learn a lot about the pro game as compared to the college game and different differences there. But Yeah, it was really, really good learning experience. He ended up leaving there, going to get a job with the Iowa Energy, which is in the D League. From there, I left, coached overseas for 2 years, came back, got on with the 76ers. I'm fast forwarding now a little bit because I don't want to bore people, but went from the 76ers, Houston Rockets, San Antonio Spurs, and then because I haven't updated you a lot in the last couple of years, but did
No.
land with I know I landed with the Celtics, so I'm no longer with the Sixers. I'm sorry, Key, but I was with the Celtics most recently, and yeah, I'm gonna shut up and let you guide me as to where we want to go from here.
Can you tell the viewers the transition it was from being a player and then a coach? Now, I know for a fact you said you did all the little things, which is a grind, and you had to really love the game in order to, because like you said, you was in Chicago. You could have came back home. You could have went back into the business world. What do you think made you decide that, look, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to pay the price, and I'm going to pay my dues?
Stupidity. Man, it's funny, right? If my girlfriend now knew how little money basketball is going to pay, she'd have been gone a long time ago. But I mean, it's trade-offs. It's a lot of trade. I think life is trade-offs. And as much as it's really, really cool to be able to work in basketball and wake up and love what you do every day, there's a lot of things that if I were to lay them all out, right, and you could see them like the last, let's call it like for 10 years, what I did every day for 10 years, and people looked at it, they'd be like, man, you can have it. Like, I don't want it. So
Exactly.
a little bit of stupidity early on, but then I'm a little bit stubborn and Portuguese, and I'm like, hey, man, I made it this far. I'm gonna see this thing through. So a lot of people probably would have said, hey, the returns aren't worth it. Change gears. Your friends are making money on Wall Street. You could go do that. You could go do this, like all the kinds of different options that I had. But I would say, yeah, it's just, I think the same reason you're doing the show, right? You just love it. There's just that thing, that child in you that found the game and loved it for whatever reason. And if you have a chance to go do that, like, it's hard to say no to it, right? Now you get punched in the face every day for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But man, it wasn't necessarily the easiest transition. There were nights where you're sitting there going, what am I doing? Right? And think about me over in China, right? And I can't even talk to anybody, and I'm in an apartment, like, I gotta eat this food. How did I get here? And how stupid do I have to be making this decision right now while my friends are out there, going to bars and having fun back in the United States and doing this and that. So trust me, there's some trade-offs that it'll make you think twice. So I don't want to depress everybody with how terrible it was, right? Because I get to wake up and work with NBA guys and high school guys and college guys and some really, really fun stuff and cool stuff. But yeah, it's a trade-off. It's not like, oh, this guy's so lucky, right? It was a lot of tough months and years, but
that's the reason why, not only because I love you and your family and what you accomplished, but I kind of want to get the viewers to know a little bit about the inside of the NBA that maybe the viewers have no idea. And that's kind of why I want you on, because I think you would be better than most to be able to give the viewers a little bit of something that they may not know, because they think the NBA is all great and all that, but it's a lot of work. Again, obviously you just said what you had to do, but give me the pros and cons of your journey.
So if you look at the NBA as, let's call it the top of the mountain, right? The NBA, the basketball mountain, so to speak.
Right.
As a player, right, you just have to be born with some physical gifts for the most part that just other people aren't born with, right? So that filters out 99.9% of the population as it is, right? And the closer you get, let's call it like Division I college basketball, maybe minor league, international, NBA, the closer you get to the top, there's still thousands and thousands of people that have the same physical skill set as you do, right? And you need to separate yourself just as a player now, by so many little things that have nothing to do with the physical gifts you've been given, right? Show up on time. Don't talk back. Be humble enough to accept a role. Learn. Don't just think that you know everything, right? And then learn the game. Learn how to play it. Learn how to play with other people. And then from there, like, then you got to outwork everybody, right? So, like, you got to work pretty damn hard to get to the NBA. And some guys I know, they're born with some amazing gifts, right? Now, that talent pool of, like, close to the NBA, right? That's thousands of people. Let's think, and internationally now too, like, that's thousands of people who have those physical gifts who are good enough. Now let's filter it down and see who can get even higher. But if you were to take all of the people who want to work in basketball, around basketball, that pool of people is so much bigger than the amount of players, like the players pool of people, right? Think about how many people there are in the world that want to be an NBA coach, right? And there's no physical filter, right? It's not like, oh, well, you got to be 6'5", you have to have this amount of vertical. There's no filter on that, right? So that pool is 1,000 times bigger than the pool of players. And we already know how hard it is for those players to get from near glory to glory. Try to be be a 5'8" Portuguese kid who can't jump, can't run, can't do anything, right? No basketball pedigree or uncle or grandfather who was somebody, and from our little corner of the world. So imagine how much more you have to outwork that pool of people. And then beyond that, like I was saying, just kind of some stupidity, right? Like, there are some really smart, really capable coaches who are just like, hey man, this isn't worth it. And they go out and they go do something else and they make more money and whatever. So, like, you got to walk that line between dumb enough to chase your dream and smart enough to then make it once you do choose to chase your dream. So I'm not out here saying everybody should try to do what I did or what I've done. But if you are, then you should absolutely throw yourself into it and be prepared to work, because you're going to have to outwork a lot of people. And there were a lot of times where, a lot of our contracts are year to year, and I'm much more replaceable than a 6'7" guy who can dunk and shoot a three, right? You can find 5'8" Portuguese who think they know everything, right? So in that respect, you can't afford to screw up. You'll be replaced, right? So you've got to make sure that you're doing all the little things between knowing when to keep your mouth shut, knowing who to learn from, knowing to show up on time, and then knowing that everybody's going to show up on time. So you're going to have to put in, an extra 4 hours on a Saturday night and be the last person that leaves the office. You're going to have to be there 4 hours before everybody gets in, so that the people who are in the decision making, they see your face, they see that you're there. I don't necessarily want to, like, use anecdotes and stuff to like drop names and this and that, but, like, one of the things that really set me apart when I got to Philly, right? Getting there was one thing, and then getting invited into the rooms that were the decision-making rooms, or getting invited into projects where, it's the head coach and so just honestly, I think the first time that Brett Brown really noticed me, it was like, I think it was a Friday night. And again, I'm 26 or 27, 28 at the time. And everybody else is out in downtown Philly and Center City, having a beer, doing whatever. And it was like 9 o'clock on a Friday night in the off season. And I was just at my computer going through, a filter of a bunch of international plays and sets. And Brett Brown just happened to walk by my desk and was like, what are you looking at? And it started a conversation just because I was there at 10:30 at night or whatever it was on a Friday, when the head coach of the Sixers just happened to be in his office. And it's a lot of that. And now that we can romanticize that one chance interaction where Brett walked by and he asked me a question, and I showed him some stuff that I ran when I was a head coach overseas. And he was like, wow, this is amazing stuff. And he gave me a project. He said, hey, this is great stuff. I want you to put this into a sport code sorter, and then add in some of your favorite sets from international, and then pull it all together. And let's meet on Monday and let's go through it all. Right. So now all of a sudden now I have one-on-one time with Brett Brown. He's one of the 30 NBA head coaches in the world. So getting that opportunity is one thing, right? So this is what I would like to impart on other people who are trying to do similar things is, yes, show up early, stay late. You get those interactions, right? But you also need to be prepared when you do get that, right? Because let's say that it took me however many times I've stayed late on a Friday or on a Saturday, or been there at 6 a.m. or slept in the back office on a couch that people didn't know was there because whatever I was going to get, rather than drive all the way home and then come back. But like, forget all those times that you finally get that one opportunity, right? And you get that one break and somebody sees you and notices your work. You also have to have the craft mastered, right? Like, everybody is worried about networking and getting in front of the right person and talking to the right guy who's going to talk to the guy who gets you the job and gets you the next job and the next job, and aligning yourself with the right people. And everyone, what gets lost is like mastering the craft. Like, what happens if Brett Brown walks by my desk and he sees what I'm working on? It's not interesting. Or maybe he does give me a project to do, and I don't necessarily know how to go and find some international basketball sets and put together a good product for him to go view, right?
Right.
I could have flopped. Could have been a total failure, right? You got your shot, you missed it. So yes, put yourself in those positions to be lucky. Put yourself in the positions to outwork people, and outworking people is one thing, but like, you also have to be good at what the craft is, what the skill is. So not just worried about how to get the next job, how to network, but like, what can I do right now to make myself a better coach? What can I do right now to make myself a better scout? Whatever it is that you want to be, you actually have to be it, right? Because at some point you're going to get that job, you're going to get that opportunity, and then what? You got to make sure that you know your SHIT. So, anyways, I'm rambling at this point, but that's kind of one insight into, like, not only the work that it requires in getting lucky, but then being prepared for that luck when it does come.
Now I'm going to backtrack a little bit. You said, you're 5'8", 40, and you translated to you being a coach. How was you able to have the respect of your players when they didn't know your basketball abilities, or
Yep.
how were you able to get their respect in a foreign country?
So it's funny. There's some gimmicks, and then there's some that you can't fake. I would say on the gimmick side, right, I had rubbed enough elbows with some names that people knew, right? So that's one way, right? Name recognition. It's like, oh man, this guy used to work out Dwayne Wade in the summer. Now, that sounds sexy and cool, but like, let's back up. I had to go sleep on couches and try to sell finished basements and live on wherever, and then show up at this place and then earn Tim Grover's respect, and then come back the next summer and then earn his respect again, just to even get on the court with Dwayne, to a point where Tim trusts me to work Dwayne out, right? So there's a lot of work to get that type of exposure. But then once you have some of that name recognition, and it's a little gimmicky, but that can help you earn respect with other people, right? They just go, wow, Dwayne Wade trusts him, I trust him. Now, that's not going to work for everybody, right? And even if you do get that, then that interaction going forward with that player, whoever that you earn that respect of, you still need to prove it every day, right? So like, that's one thing. Let's set that aside. I think the other thing is, you can't be a fan. You just can't be, and it's really hard for a lot of people, but these are real people, like at the high levels, right? The Dwayne Wades, the Tracy McGrady's, the Gilbert Arenas, guys that I've worked with. And
hold up. Say that again.
Gilbert, Tracy.
You hear this, folks? You hear this?
Right. So the name recognition is real. It means more when you hear, institution level type names. But those guys sniff it out real quick, right? And even an international pro, right? My guys that play for me in China, like, they're the best players in China, or the best players in Japan when I was in Japan. Like, they can sniff it out pretty quick if you're faking it, right? So I think the first thing is, have a presence, have some confidence in yourself, and don't be a fan. When they have a question for you, and say, and they're really testing you a lot of the time, and it'd be like, why are you going to do this? When we do pick and roll this way during the season, this is how we get the coverage. And if I don't have a good answer, and I'm just like, okay, we'll do it your way, and you're very submissive and give in. Mm-hmm. There's times to give in when you're wrong. I get that. But like, if you don't have answers and you don't actually know the craft of what you're talking about, they're going to tune you out. So I think you get credibility the hard way, unfortunately, which is day after day proving that you know what the heck you're talking about, right? And that goes back to my earlier point, which is like, you got to know the craft, right? You have to go through UMass Dartmouth camp and do all the hard work to figure out how to learn the game from Mike Contasio, from other guys, and all the people all the resources they have. And like our little corner of the world, we didn't have Red Auerbach and all these brilliant basketball minds everywhere, but you have what you have, and let's make the most of that. What can I take from Mike? What can I take from Eddie Rodericks and Brian Baptiste and Steve Gasper and all these other guys? Let's find what I can take and make myself better. And then when you get to the next level, you're going to have to take from other people. Maybe the resources are better and you can learn from more people. But if you don't make the most of the resources you have, you're never going to get that next level and then have access to the other resources, the sexier ones, and then the higher and higher and higher you go. So it is a lot of, and it's a great question, right? Because first time I walk on the court with, Steph Curry or whoever in the summer, it's like, they're giving you the look like, all right, impress me or show me why I should be spending time with you, right? And so you don't want to fall into the gimmicks, right? So a lot of the workout gurus that are out there, they go way over the top with the sexy stuff that players really don't need, which is like, I'm going to teach you this crazy dribble move that you're going to have and nobody else is going to have. And I have these drills that nobody else has. And this is exclusive stuff that you can't get anywhere. Right. And that's attractive. That gets somebody's attention. Like, all right, I'm going to have this secret weapon. And there is no secret sauce. Sometimes there's things that you can learn from a Tim Grover that you can't learn anywhere else. That's true. Right. He's learned with and from Michael Jordan. And there's certainly some of that, but that makes up maybe 1% of what it takes to be a good basketball player. And Tim was great at this because he knew that like 95% of what these guys need is just repetitions and the boring stuff that they don't want to do. And if you really want them to get better, you have to spoon feed them that and just, hey, this is what we're going to do. It's not sexy. It's one dribble pull-ups, right? For the next 50 minutes, whatever it ends up being. Mm-hmm. And you do need to sprinkle in something to perk or pique their interest a little bit, right? So then if we're doing a 60-minute workout, 45 minutes, 50 minutes is going to be the bread and butter stuff that they really need. And I think Brad Stevens was great at this when he was at Butler and even with the Celtics. He would call it dream time, right? Where you have something that is probably a little bit beyond your arsenal of what you should be able to do, but we're going to dedicate 10 minutes, 15 minutes right now to whatever it is that you want to add to your game that's a little bit of a dream for you, right? Like, let's work on that half spin, step back, step through, whatever it is that you want to add to your game, right? And that keeps people interested. That keeps them salivating to come back for something more, right? But it really is like, it can be gimmicky, right? And it's for a lot of the people who run workouts and stuff with locally, right? You're competing. There's a lot of people who want to do that. And so you need to try to have an edge over somebody else. And so it's tempting to try to give these young kids these fancy moves and especially when I know a lot of people around here who do workouts and it's like, they're smart. They have resources and YouTube and like people that they know and they've played at high levels and they're really, really good. They know some stuff, but the ones that succeed in the long term are the ones that they reserve that for the people who are ready for it, right? If you're working with a Division I college kid, throw it at them. If you're working with an NBA guy, throw it at them. When you're working, you got to cater what you give to the level that you're working with, right? And it might be exciting for you to show, a 15-year-old kid like, an inside-out crossover step back, but like, are they ready for that? Is that really going to help them, right? And you can give them small doses of it, but like, you really need to be 90% of it is the meat and potatoes, right? Can you get by your guy with as little motion as possible, right? Minimizing what you're doing. Can you get by him and then get him off balance and pull up while you're on balance? Can you finish at the rim? Can you make open threes when you're left open? Can you make free throws? Like, there's so much to cover and master before you get to all that other stuff. I'm rambling again, but basically that's kind of my message to how to build credibility is guys can sniff that out sometimes too. If you're too extravagant, if you're too a little bit far on the I got the secret sauce type of stuff, they're not dumb either, right? They're going to be like, all right, this guy. But if you beat them over the head with the stuff that's not sexy that they need, that's credible. and yeah, just not being a fan, not putting people on a pedestal, right? When being able to interact with them and not ask them questions like, "Hey, did you hang out with this celebrity before?" Or like, just that doesn't
No.
get you anywhere. You got to talk to these people like on you're on their level.
Now I'm gonna ask you another question. Okay, you went overseas and you coached overseas, and you did some things with Brett Brown and all that. What was it like when you knew, hey, I'm working for Philadelphia 76ers? What was that like? See, I want the viewers to get to know something that they may not know about, again, a part of your journey. I mean, all of a sudden, you're at the pinnacle, and y'all with Philadelphia 76ers. I'm sure my supervisor, my producer supervisor, will come on any minute now. Can you let the viewers know what was it like once you knew that you were in the NBA?
It's man, as a kid who was a purist and loved it, it's hard to not take a step back sometimes and just take it all in and be like, man, this is special, right? And you do have some of those moments. I think my dad came and visited me in Philly, and it was like I just had this moment where I was like, I brought him into the facility. We had it empty. There was nobody in. It was like a Sunday. Brought him in, let him shoot around the court, in the locker room, going through, and it was like, that was special. That's a special moment. And those are far and few between because you're so busy and you're so trying to stay ahead with the next step that you don't get a chance to really stop and smell the roses. But I would say that I was listening to Kobe Bryant speak one time at a Nike camp, and he was talking about expectations and setting your mental state where it needs to be. And he was saying like that when you really convince yourself that you expect to win, and that comes from doing the work, right? You can't trick yourself. You can't not do the work and then be like, oh, I'm going to win. I'm going to be the best. Once you get yourself to that state and you actually truly believe you expect to win, winning isn't as high as it seems from afar, because this is what was supposed to happen, right? And it's almost like he talked about it as like a letdown almost, whereas like you reach the top and then this was naturally, of course, what was supposed to happen, because I believed this was going to happen the whole time, right? So you do see the celebration and all that, and it is everything that it is. But at the same time, if you believe it, which I think, I'm not some mystic, like self talk type of person, but I do believe that like you need to actually believe you can do what you want to do. And if you actually do believe that, then the highs aren't these like unbelievable times that just are flash in the pan moments. They're supposed to happen because you've done the work, and this is how it goes. So in that respect, and I will get to answer your question more directly, but in that respect, I did have a couple of those moments. It was special to bring my dad there and do that type of stuff. And then that first board meeting when it's like the NBA draft is a month away, and I'm one of the 10 people in the room that gets to make these decisions and start talking about players. Like, those are special moments. Those are really, really special moments. And so I would say if you really want to get down to helping people understand what it's like on the inside, it's much more detailed than a lot of people think, and like really well planned and thought out. It's not, and then in some organizations, and then on the flip side, unfortunately, there are some organizations where it's like a bunch of guys just shooting the shit. So there are some organizations that take things really seriously down to every interaction. So Oklahoma City is a great example. Sam Presti played at Emerson College, and brilliant guy. He's done a fantastic job over there. He basically logs every single interaction every staff member has with every player and every potential player every day. We're talking CIA level databases of information. So, for instance, a G League coach gets a guy in for a workout who, they might think about bringing him into training camp in the offseason. He comes in for an offseason workout. That coach then has to go and write out, like old-fashioned, write out a report on that interaction, right? I had lunch with him for 20 minutes. This is what we talked about. this is, what I thought about the person. This is what I think maybe his weaknesses are, whatever, just from a conversation. In Philly, I think, I don't want to throw any players under the bus who are now good NBA players. We brought in a guy for a workout, Louisville guy, and we had an intern go pick him up at the airport. And the intern picks him up literally in like his Toyota, whatever, Tercel, who knows? Like the kid's there on no salary, go to the airport, pick up this player. We couldn't get him a paid car or whatever. So you got to go do it. He's coming in unexpected. Pick up the NBA player, drives him to the facility in Philly. And on the way from the drive, like the intern is trying to strike up some conversation. I'm driving you. This is a pretty personal experience. You're sitting in my driver's seat. Tell me about, Louisville, Coach Pitino, or, how was your travel? This and that. And that player was like, hey, man, I'm not really trying to talk right now. Like, let's just get where we're going. So that interaction, we find out about it from the intern. We report what the interaction was like. That guy's off our list before he even gets in our gym, Mike.
Right.
So there's so much detail and thought that goes into everything that happens in some organizations. And then, unfortunately, to feed fodder to the people who like to pontificate on social media and talk about what an idiot this GM is and what an idiot that. Unfortunately, there are some organizations that are kind of by the seat of their pants, right? They get in the room and all these scouts have been doing all their work for the whole year. And GM is just going to side with the ownership, and the owner wants to draft this player because they can probably market that player better and it's a sexier pick, and they go with that guy, right? So, like, it's hard to stick up for a lot of the NBA and say that, this is next level thinking, the analytics and the ex-NBA guys who are anti-analytics and these meeting of minds and these debates and the tracking of data, the physical data, the stuff that the guys will wear and how we evaluate all of this stuff and how we measure our the guys who come in for draft workouts. Like, I'd love to stick up for that side of the NBA, and I will. But there are some teams who just, unfortunately, they do all that to cover their bases, kind of. But when it comes down to the final decision, it's kind of like it's not the big mystique that you would think it is, right? And so they rightfully probably deserve some criticism.
This hour has gone by so quick. We got about 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it went by so fast. I could talk to you for 10 hours. On me, but okay. Let's talk about
trust the process. You got any questions?
I'm sitting here listening.
Okay.
You were talking about, you're in the draft room and, scouting. Please tell me you didn't make that decision to trade Mikal Bridges on draft day.
I was there for that one.
Because me as a Sixer and a Villanova fan, I was excited to see that pick at number 10. I was like, oh, my God, we got Mikal Bridges. And then I'm like, wait a minute, what are y'all doing?
And I'm going to make it even worse for you right now. His mother worked for our team. So Mikal's mother, different last name, but basically she was in our, I want to say in our marketing department. She was like an executive with Philly. And this was like dream come true. Brett loved the kid. We all loved the kid. And Brett, I think on record the next day, said that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do as a coach. Because at the time, Sam Hinkie had stepped down. Brian Colangelo had been pushed out. Brett was the interim GM. And so he was not only head coach, but he was also the general manager. And they drafted Mikal. That was their guy. They liked him. And then Phoenix, I think, came in with an offer. And they all sat around, and Brett kind of trusted his team of experts. And they basically had to go tell the kid who just minutes before had kind of landed his storybook ending or beginning to his career, and his mother works for the team, and he played at Villanova, and he's like, that was fantastic storybook type stuff. And then we had to go tell him he was traded on draft night. That was, I sympathize with you, and all of us felt it as much as you do. I promise you. But
I'm like, look at him. I'm like, ugh.
All right. If I tell you I was also in the room that helped select Joel Embiid, did that give me a little bit of
Oh,
Forgiveness.
okay.
Okay, now that was a great pick.
All right.
Me being a fan and not being biased, I think out of all the picks besides AI, Tyrese and Joel has been one of our top picks.
I think you're right. We
Um,
could do this all day. Then you could go and criticize me for Ben Simmons and then Jaleel
Oh,
Okafor.
oh,
We could
God,
go
no,
through all of it.
oh,
the Ben Simmons. I understand the Ben Simmons, but it's just like all the then I just look at all the talent that we gave up and who took before and after, and I was like, of all people, y'all trade with Boston for them to get Jason Tatum. We could have had Jason Tatum. So
Oh man, Markel Fultz. That was probably the worst, maybe the
oh
worst
my,
pick
yeah,
at,
yeah, yeah.
of all the ones that from that era.
But I
I
know
will tell you
you.
this: I have a picture somewhere on my phone where on draft night we kind of know, but you never know what happens. Trade happens. You never know. So there was the Ben Simmons jersey that was in the office, and with Simmons on the back, Philly jersey, Simmons. There, I have an image somewhere. This jersey must exist. Somebody's got it, but it was a Brandon Ingram Sixers jersey. I got a picture of that.
oh.
So it was close. It was close. If for something had happened differently, we ended up with Brandon Ingram. They were ready. That's a one of one jersey, I guarantee you.
Sure.
Now I know you moved on from the team since then, and I'm no sure you still following around. But what do you think about Philly acquiring Paul George and all the picks and moves that was made this off season? Did Daryl Morey, I guess, know like maybe he's on the hot seat and he's trying to hopefully change this culture? And part two, what do you think about Joel's, I guess, future here? Like, knowing his injury proneness and things of that nature, do you think he'll finally bring us a championship?
Boy, I can't say a bad word about Joel. I love him to death, especially the first 2.5 years that he went through with our organization. He legitimately felt like he was letting the city down. He felt like a failure. He didn't play. Obviously, there were injuries. We knew how good he was. We could see him in our gym every day, but not everybody else. They couldn't see what we could see. And it built in him this humility, which he already had, right? He came from nothing, and he came over here and was very, very self-made, and he appreciates everything he has, unlike a lot of the younger American kids that come up through the system. And just a genuinely good kid. He really did suffer personally, emotionally through those first couple of years. Those were really tough. So to see him succeed, I wish him the best of everything in the world. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's the right person to keep there and build around. And I don't think he's your problem, put it that way. I will say I have a lot of respect for Daryl Morey. I think Daryl is, when we're talking about the two types of front offices, Daryl's one of those guys who covers all of his bases. There's not a decision he makes that isn't well thought out and planned out. They don't always work out, but I think he is very, very thoughtful about everything he does. So when you say, is he on the hot seat, or why are we doing what they're doing? The other thing that I've learned, the variable that nobody really accounts for, is ownership. And ownership can really, really make or break a team. And I never really used to buy into that. I was like, all right, they write checks, this and that, but they can really put their thumb on the scale if they want to. And I think the ownership group, they've done well. They've suffered through the Sam Hinkie, the process, right? There was a long time of nothing in Philly. And I think they know that they're close. And so they're trying everything they can to get over that hump, right? And owners aren't always the best people to know what gets you over that hump, but they probably think they are, right? These are super successful people. These are some of the most successful guys on the planet. Why wouldn't they think that they could help fix the situation? And I'm not saying that's this situation. I'm just trying to say that of the general manager and then the coach and the players, there's an equal part to that equation. And that's the ownership. And if they are dead set on something, they can really sway things. So I would say ownership is thirsty to make this work. They've suffered a long time, and they're trying to do whatever they can. So I don't want to say they're desperate, but I do think that they're trying to make a splash in a big way, and it's a stars league right now. So I think we'll see.
All right, now let me interject.
Sure.
Boss, thanks for coming on. uh, Norm, now transition to your working for the Celtics because now with them winning the championship and all that, I'm sure people want to hear that. I'm not a Celtics fan, but anyway, if you trans,
neither is
if,
my neither is my father. So I
that's
think
my guy.
I will start by saying this every single time. I think Brad Stevens deserves so much credit for what he
Yep,
has done.
yep.
He and people forget the development of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum happened under Brad Stevens. He from the time they were rookies, right? He saw these guys day in and day out. He helped develop them into the players they are today, without question. So the fact that he did all of these things he's done afterwards, right? Going out and putting Porzingis around there, going and stealing Al Horford back, trading away, Robert Williams and Marcus Smart when people thought that was the end of the world, bringing in Drew Holiday and Derek White and these guys who are such perfect and valuable role guys that they are literally playing on the USA team for a reason, right? I cannot tell you how much credit Brad Stevens deserves. And I thought it was a wild disservice that he didn't on that night when they won it. And he's not the type that would want attention. But I thought he should have been the first guy that they went to with the microphone to congratulate and ask. And the owners, I love Pags and Wick, and they're great. And I love Joe. I played against Joe in high school, and I've known him for a long time. And I love a lot of those guys on the team. But Brad Stevens deserves more credit than anybody for that championship and what they've done. And he'll tell you the opposite, and he'll tell you it's everybody else. And that's more proof that he's humble enough to be the type of guy and the leader that group needed. So hats off to Brad Stevens. Boston should never let him go, no matter what it costs to keep him here. And beyond that, I mean, you tell me, Mike, what do you want to know? I mean, it's hard to poke holes in this roster that he put together, and
It is.
the future looks bright.
And they're all tied up. They're all locked up for years. So, yeah, I think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with for. I don't know about dynasty yet, but I think they're going to be a team to be dealt with, especially in the Eastern Conference as well.
I agree.
Go ahead.
No, I think there's a lot of maturity issues that need to get worked out, and they do. And winning helps all, right? And I think the problems aren't necessarily basketball related problems, right? You got all the pieces. Everything seems to fit on the court. The question will be, and it usually is in the NBA, sustained success comes and goes with people, not with the players, right? The players are people, how they get along together, how they handle different roles, how they do they get bored with winning, right? Do they still have that fire that champions have, that one championship's not enough and two's not enough and 10's not enough? Or do they start competing internally for who's got more endorsements and there's so many things that are non-basketball related. And I think Isaiah Thomas told Bill Simmons in that book, the secret to basketball is that it's not about basketball. And so I think yet to be seen, but I'll let you go, Mike, or continue on with what you're going to say.
No, but before we go, and like I said, this hour went so damn quick.
Let's do it again.
To have you on again, but let the folks know what you're doing right now.
Oh man, are you ready for this? I started a company, non-basketball related. So I do still do advanced scouting. That advanced scouting is it's taken since COVID and the travel restrictions and stuff. Advanced scouting, for those who don't know, is I go into the stadium of the team we're going to play next week, and I basically try to extract as much information as I can about the opponent, put it together in a report, and then send that off to our coaching staff, right? So I'm always like a week ahead of the team we're about to play. And that used to be 5 NBA cities a week, right? You get up, you get to the airport, go to the next city, get to the game, eat as much as you can at the game, finish the game, send the report in at midnight from the hotel, get to the airport, go to the next city. So that was what I was doing there for a while. And since COVID, the travel restrictions kind of made that a little bit more difficult. So a lot of teams have kind of cut back. They said, all right, can we do it from film? Are there different ways that we can still accomplish the same stuff? So it's become a more remote job. I'm still doing that on a contractor basis. However, since I'm not traveling to every NBA city in the world and waking up in Indianapolis or Oklahoma City on Tuesday, I had a lot more time. So I started a company, and I'm bringing back the Babson finance degree here, but we engineer a financial product to compete with the traditional mortgage, which makes home buying half as expensive as it is if you were to go to a bank. So we're getting that off the ground. That's a whole nother episode, but I've been working on getting that together. We're backed by private equity, and we're launching this summer, or have launched locally in the Boston area. So working on that and all kinds of stuff, Mike.
You know, I am so proud of you, man, and you know how much I love you and everything. And is there anything that maybe I didn't ask, or maybe there's something, well, Mike should have asked this, or maybe I want to relay something to the viewers?
Oh man, we covered a lot, and by a lot I mean I just rambled and talked and filibustered a lot. Yeah, I think we have such a special area, Mike. Right? People don't realize how unique our area is, and I think the basketball communities have kind of dissipated and weakened across the country. Used to be, Durfee, New Bedford, Brockton. This area was, and people knew the kids, and the kids went to those high schools. Right now, there's the prep schools, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I went to a prep school, and there's a lot of good things that have happened too. The AU circuit has changed, and I don't want to denigrate that and some of the good things that have happened. But I think some of the things we've lost are the things like you're doing here with the show, is trying to bring attention to the community that we have, right? And not obsessed with what we see on social media about the bigger fish and bigger ponds. Let's talk about our local community in basketball and what kids are doing this. And there's a lot of kids that are guys that are my age I see that are running workouts and doing great things and putting attention on that. I'm a local. I believe in local. I believe in communities, and we can accomplish all the sexy things later if we master our own community, right? And I think what you're doing is fantastic. I would say, like, just the stuff I'm seeing, and it's on social media a lot of the time, but like there's a lot of stuff that's going on that's not on social media that I don't know about. But I try to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on around here a little bit, and I want to tip my cap to all the people who are doing really good stuff that don't get noticed, right? A lot of guys out there like you who are working at the boys club and doing things when, I was coming up, and that's still going on out there. Right. And I can think of people right now that are doing that same type of stuff that don't get a lot of credit. There's not a lot of praise that goes into getting in the gym with a kid who needs some guidance, and then not giving them some sexy dribble moves, but saying, hey, we're going to work on your one dribble pull-up jumper going left today for the next hour, right? And putting in that type of time. There are so many guys, that the old New Bedford guys and players that played there, and guys that played at Durfee, who took me aside and said, hey, you want to work out? Let's go work out, right? And I would go work out with them for an hour once a week and just beat me over the head with fundamentals, right? And when kids are going to prep school here and there and they're taking off and the homegrown talent is kind of dispersed, I can understand why local communities can kind of lose interest in sports and those rivalries and stuff like that. But I think what you're doing is great. I think bringing attention to local stuff like that is fantastic. The kids and guys that are out there doing the work with youth basketball, hat off to you guys. And it's easy to take criticism when you're maybe doing it as a business or a side hustle or whatever it ends up being. Ignore it. Keep doing what you're doing. I think there's a lot of good stuff going on in the area, and I hope to keep bringing good light to it.
Well, again, Norm, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and do my show. And you have
it ain't that busy. Summer's a good time.
But you have an open invitation. Next time you come on, we can talk about your business ventures, and we can do whatever you want to promote what you do now. You know what I mean? So, again, they gave me the platform to do what I basically want because they have the trust in me, and they know that I'm going to bring a quality guest on. And obviously, you are one of the top guests I've ever had. This is one of the most interesting shows I've ever done. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And
thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
I'll tell you this. Next time we talk, we need to start talking about minor league sports, because I got stories you wouldn't believe, Mike. I'm telling you, some of the the early minor league days and then coaching overseas and guys' names that you know. It's like there is this huge void between like a 10-day contract and retirement, right? And there's so many guys living in that, like just this smidgen close to being on the biggest stage. And there's so fewer resources and things that go on as stories. I'm telling you, one of my things I want to do before I die is I'm going to write a book about minor league sports and international sports and guys that were like this close to making it, because there's so many good, wholesome stories, and there's some wild ones too. But we could hit that next time.
We definitely going to do that. I definitely want you back on. And again, thank you for coming on my show. And, you know, I'm at a loss for words. I have so much love, and I'm so proud of you and what you're doing. And keep doing what you're doing. God bless.
I appreciate it, Mike. You're my guy, too. Thank you.
Folks, thank you for tuning into Sports Corner with the Conn Man on the Sports Wave Network. And stay tuned. We're going to be on in a couple of weeks. We have some great guests, as usual. And again, I want to thank you for tuning in. You guys have a great day. God bless. Stay safe. Thank you.